Get set, podcast listener, and be ready to win with your mentor, motivator, and marketer, Cam Roberts. Grow your business and achieve your goals quickly with the latest tips, tools, and tactics on business, success, and marketing. Subscribe now and download your free resources at camroberts.com.au.
Hey everyone, Cam Roberts here. Welcome to the podcast show. Now, on today's show, I've got a special guest from Instinct Education, and he is Connor Marriott. Now, Connor is the CEO at Instinct Education, and they've enrolled over 5,000 business experts to master client acquisition, and they've run millions of dollars in paid ads previously, but now they work closely with their clients to get similar results, and they help their clients create high-ticket offers. So, Connor, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Cam. Great to be here.
Now, Connor, before we get started and talk about, what you do and how you help people, can you share with everyone, how did you get started with your brand and where did Instinct Education come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my business journey as a personal trainer. I was a personal trainer for like 3 or 4 years. And I always wanted to do more with business. Like personal training wasn't my long-term goal.
Yeah.
But I would start businesses and I'd, for whatever reason, stop. I probably did that like 4 or 5 times and just wasn't really doing anything. And then eventually, when I was about 22, I read this quote, and it was, to get what you want, you have to deserve what you want. And it must have been like a right quote, right time kind of thing, because it made me realize I said I wanted to start a business, but like my actions were not really deserving of that. Like I was spending most of my time working out or hanging out with friends.
Right.
And so long story short, I basically decided to start a new business, but go all in with like actually deserving the results. So I started a marketing company because I'd learned a bit of digital marketing for my personal training.
Yeah.
I got started with that, and I basically for 3 months when I started, did nothing but that. Like I stopped exercising, stopped seeing friends, which is I don't really recommend that approach, but I really wanted to deserve it.
Well, it's okay if you don't have a family and other commitments, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was like all I did. I even moved across the country, so I was living by myself. But yeah, 3 months of basically 12 to 16 hour days.
Yeah, immersion, total immersion, isn't it?
Yeah. And it took 3 months to get my first client. But then from there, that whole time I was just developing the skills and the traits to actually get clients, do sales, all that sort of stuff. And then once we got our first client, it started to pick up pretty quickly, to the point that we were able to work with some very big clients in terms of their advertising spend, which basically just increased the speed in which I learned marketing. Some of our clients had a daily budget of $10,000 to spend on ads. And it's if you're managing that amount of money, you either need to get good or be good.
That's
pretty
right.
quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I learned a lot with that. And then basically we kept working with clients, and we found that for the done for you side of things, a lot of the time, because we were doing the marketing, generating leads, but the issue was that the business itself was lacking lead nurture or sales processes or onboarding processes. And so we could generate all the leads, but they weren't able to actually turn them into clients. So
right. Yeah.
With that in mind, we kind of focused more on the education, and that's kind of how we started Instinct Education, which is not doing it for you, but teaching you how to do it. And by doing that, we can kind of look at the business holistically and help business owners install the systems that are required to not just get leads or get attention online, but actually generate sales and growth.
Excellent. Very good. And I know we were speaking before we came on air, and you were saying that you not only teach people about marketing and sales, but you actually dive a bit deeper than that. And you look at things like characteristics, commitment, dedication and things like that. Is that a crossover, or is that something you've brought into this business because of what you've learned as a personal trainer? Yeah,
I've actually never thought about it from that standpoint, but very likely. The way I've always thought about it is everyone wants a strategy, right? They're right. I want to grow my business. I want the strategy. What's the strategy that works? But the way I kind of think of it is, if let's say you want to run a marathon, you could get the best coach, the best strategy, the best diet plan, everything perfect. But if you're well, I don't actually want to run, you're probably not going to win a marathon. Yeah, whereas if you just have the character traits of I'm going to run each day, you're going to do a lot better. And so people want something simple that will fit into their kind of character traits and characteristics and behaviors, when in reality, if we can just change those things, if there was one thing I could do for a business owner, it would not be teaching them a strategy. It would be get them consistently executing, and with that trait, they will achieve success, like despite the strategy.
Yeah, excellent. Very good.
Yeah.
So how do you make the transition from, managing $10,000 of people's ads a day into teaching them how to do that? Because I'm thinking to myself, like, if you're the guy that's done the whole immersion thing for 3 months, and you're managing different companies and their big ad budgets, like, how do you go to teach someone to do that for themselves?
It was a process. Like when I first started teaching, it started off as like, I'll give you an hour-long call for 8 weeks and we'll kind of figure it out. And like, because I didn't know what the process, I had an idea in my head, but it wasn't until I actually like did it with people and be like, okay, well, let's, like, I'm pretty sure my first client, we're doing one-on-one calls, and I'm like, all right, well, let's launch your ads. And they're like, okay, like, where am I sending the traffic? I'm like, oh, I guess you probably need a funnel or something before that. So I'm like, okay, let's start there. And then they're like, well, what's the funnel say? I'm like, oh, okay, you probably need an offer. Like, so you kind of learn the sequence. But then that probably took a couple of years actually to like really refine it and see where people were getting stuck and see like what they needed in what order. Like we used to teach marketing before sales, and then people would get like sales calls and they wouldn't know what to do with the sales calls. Yeah. So, okay, that should probably come first.
Yeah.
So yeah, just an ongoing process of like trying it, getting feedback from the market, seeing where people are getting stuck, and then improving it. Like we've probably redone our program like 30 times now.
Yeah.
Just like getting better and better each time.
Very good. Excellent. Yeah. And look, I'll put you on the spot. You've taught thousands of people. You've done it for other people as well. What are 3 tips you could give someone that's listening to this podcast today that, like yourself, maybe they're in a place where they don't want to be working that job anymore and they want to start a business? So what are 3 tips you can give someone that wants to launch a new business or launch a new product or service within an existing business?
Within an existing business?
Well, like, so for instance, someone's listening to this, they want to start a new business. So they're starting from scratch, or they already have a business, but like you, they want to launch a new product or service within the business.
Right. Okay. So 3 things. All right. On the spot. The first, like the most important thing that we found is going to be getting really clear on your offer. And so the way we kind of define an offer is you've got your messaging, which is going to be the market, that's who you're helping, the problem, like what you're helping them solve, and and then the outcome, which is like the promise, right?
Yeah.
So if it's like weight loss, the market could be parents, the problem's overweight, the outcome could be lose 10 kilos. That's your messaging. And then from there, you've got your offer, and your offer is how you fulfill on that promise. The mistake most people make, I think, when they start out is they try to have a really big messaging in terms of a really big market, really big problem, really big outcome. And then their offer doesn't actually fulfill on that. Because if you're promising losing 10 kilos, you can't just give someone a diet plan, because you've got like that person's exercise, that person's supplements, that person's sleep, stress, like all these other things. And so to start off, we recommend starting with a smaller market, a smaller problem, and a smaller promise. And that way your offer can fulfill on that entirely. And that's like the validity of an offer is essentially how well it does what it says it's going to do. So it's better to say, I'm going to help you with a small thing and do it, than I'm going to help you with a big thing and not succeed with that.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so that's probably the first thing. From there, I would say once you've got your offer, probably depending on the price point, like sales, if it's a higher ticket thing. And then in terms of like actually getting clients, I think the most important thing is just going to be some sort of consistent behavior. Like when I started out, I was doing door to door. And as far as like good strategies go, that's probably not that good, but I did it for like 4 or 6 hours every single day for months. And so like, it's not so much you need a great strategy, like people like try to do Facebook ads or Instagram or LinkedIn, like not as important as like, am I doing it every day? Because like nothing works unless you do. And so focusing on like, what can I do each day that I'm comfortable doing each day, and then committing to doing that is probably the best place to start. And then from there, you can focus on like, okay, how do I make that process better? But if you're not like spending time each day on it, it's no strategy is really going to be effective. Yeah,
that's really good. So you've given us some really good insights there, on how to launch a product or service, from a marketing point of view. And you've also talked about sales and how, you found out that people need help with sales first before they do marketing. Otherwise, they're just going to burn through the leads. So what are some of the common mistakes that you see businesses make when it comes to sales and selling?
I think not so much mistakes, but like well, I guess it would be a mistake. Like you can go and search for like a sales script or a sales process. But it's not so much, and we've taught this too, like we've got a sales script we share with our clients, but people look at it as like, okay, I'm asking these questions to ask the question, basically. When in reality, sales is a process. There's 3 things that need to be achieved for a sales call to be successful. Number 1, the person needs to want to solve the problem. Number 2, they need to believe that your solution is going to solve the problem for them specifically. Yep. So it's not just like it can solve the problem for someone else, but it can actually solve the problem for me. And number 3, they believe the value of solving that problem is going to outweigh the cost.
Right.
And so when you go through a sales process, you're asking questions to kind of confirm those things. And if those 3 things are yes, if they want to solve the problem, if they believe this will solve the problem for them, and they believe the value of solving the problem outweighs the cost, they will buy. And so it's not the mistake I think people make is like, oh, I asked them, they go and I asked them like their current situation and now they're not buying. It's like, yeah, because you didn't actually get to the root cause of like, do they want to solve this problem? Is solving this problem worth something to them? What is it worth to them? How will it affect other areas of their life? And so if you can kind of understand that, then it's not just you're not just asking questions, you're kind of helping the prospect realize that they want to solve this problem and how it's going to help them, and providing your solution as a way to achieve that outcome.
Yeah, that's really good. And so we've talked about sales and talked about marketing. One of the things that I find, when we talk to people and have different guests on the show and they start talking sales and marketing, is often there's a gap between the two. What's your experience been in the thousands of people that you've worked with? Do you see that there's often a gap between sales and marketing? Is there some sort of sales enablement process that you teach people that allows marketing and sales to be more aligned?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is. I think people view them as separate things when in reality, they're just like, there's like a process you need to take a prospect through from like stranger to client. And you could look at it as like, they're very cold, they don't know who you are, and they're very hot, they're ready to buy. That process is a combination of marketing and sales. And so if you can, like, if you're very great marketing, your sales probably doesn't need to be as good because that person's quite warm by the time they speak to you. But if your sales is lacking, if your marketing's lacking, you're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting on the sales. And so understanding that journey and being like, where am I trying to get someone to before I speak to them in terms of the sales call? And that could just be thinking about like, what are the common objections? What are the common traits that these people who buy have? And then positioning your marketing as a way to kind of overcome those objections or frame the call or frame what you do so that by the time you speak to them, they're in a certain state of mind, they're a certain person, they've got certain character traits. And then the sales process can be more about just like enrolling them. Or it could be like, we're going to rely on our sales team or our sales process, and we're just trying to get volume. So it's just like being aware that like, regardless of what you pick, there needs to be this process that's undertaken by the prospect. And so the way we like to do it is like, try to make each one do all the work so that like, if we can get someone 99% sold just from our marketing, and then when they speak to us, the sales process is also able to sell them 99%. And then we combine those 2 things. Well, and that's going to be like the best case scenario. Obviously that's not like always super easy, totally. But just understanding the journey really.
Okay. That's really cool.
One thing.
Yep. Totally. So we've talked about marketing, we've talked about sales. Outside of sales and marketing, what other characteristics or what other things, do you find that business owners need help with?
Focus most of the time. Yeah. I think like, and it's like tough. Like I see it, like there's so many things going on. Like there's all these social media platforms, there's all these opportunities that you need a chatbot on your website, and you need like 10 funnels and be posting 10 times a day on every social media platform. Like this is what people think. And like you can make anything work, but you can't make anything work if you're trying to do everything. So I think like people, again, they want the strategy that's going to work like instantly. But that doesn't really exist. And so if they try a strategy, it doesn't work within 2 days, they're like, oh, this doesn't work, we'll go to something else. When in reality, if you just focus on one thing and improved it long-term, that's like ultimately going to work a lot better. Like when we test a new funnel or campaign or something, like the goal is not to make it awesome on day one. The goal is like over the next 6 months, we're going to incrementally improve this. Instead, it's like, let's improve it. Does it have promise? Like that's identify if it has some sort of promise. If it doesn't, then you can stop. But if there's promise, spend time on it, get better over time, and like you'll grow with the process.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, one of the points you made there, Connor, was about social media. Business owners, they're busy anyway. Like you said, they need focus. They've got marketing, they've got sales. And then sometimes they think that they've got to post all these social media platforms. They'll follow the Gary V's of the world or the Grant Cardones of the world. And, they'll see those people on 10 different platforms posting 10 times a day. What's one tip that you can give someone that's, watching all that content be created by others, and they think, well, which one do I pick? What do I do?
Yeah, I think you definitely just focus on one at the start. I now have a team that helps me with my content. So what I'm doing now would be different advice to what I'd tell someone starting out.
Right.
But you really just need one platform. If you can't make one platform work, then more is not the answer.
Yeah.
And in terms of quantity, I like to think about it if, let's say you recommend someone to a friend, that friend is probably going to go to that person's page and consume the first 2 or 3 bits of content. And so if those bits of content are good, that person might continue consuming or maybe even reach out. But if they're average, they're probably going to think, well, this person isn't really saying anything new. And so the trap of just trying to do content is that you run out of things to say, and then you basically trade quantity for quality, when instead it would be much more beneficial to post hypothetically once a week or once a fortnight that's quality. And then that way everything you're saying is actually good. And then when people find you, they'll be like, okay, this is actually useful. This can help me, versus just I need to post every day. So I'm just going to say what I had for lunch. And it's that's not really achieving anything.
Yeah, that's right. That's really good. Where do you see marketing and sales and business going over the next 2 to 3 years? What do you see on the horizon in the way of changes and the people you're dealing with and talking to? What changes do you see ahead for business owners?
I think the main thing that we're thinking about is in the past, a lot of our businesses come from paid ads,
right?
Facebook ads primarily, and not to say they don't still work, but they're definitely becoming more saturated. Facebook's becoming more.
It's getting tougher. It's a lot tougher than what it used to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the strategy we're kind of thinking about moving forward is a strategy that gets better with time, because time is guaranteed. Time will pass. And if a strategy is something that is reliant on it working now and not tomorrow, a good example might be an Instagram story. You post an Instagram story and tomorrow it's gone. It's the long-term effect of that was not much. So thinking about how can we build something long-term? And so things like branding, following, email lists are great. That's something that compounds. SEO is something that compounds. YouTube organic, something that compounds. You can post a YouTube video and then a year later someone can view it. You don't get exactly that with a Facebook post or an Instagram post.
Or a one-time webinar or anything like that.
Yeah. So just thinking if we know time's going to pass, how can we work with it so that these things get better with time, not worse? And I think that's the main shift of there's still going to be a place for paid ads for sure, but if
not to hang your hat on them, right?
Yeah, it's not. It should be a way to kind of feed this thing that gets better with time, not this whole thing. So we use ads to kind of get people in, and then we need a system or a process to keep them there forever. And if we can do that, then that's great. But if we're always relying on running ads, the day we turn ads off, everything stops. It's not really a great long-term strategy.
Yeah, that's really good. Hey, Connor, we're almost out of time, but before we finish up the episode today and the interview, can you share with us if people want to get in contact with you, learn more about your company? Where do they go? What do they do next?
Yeah, the best way is probably to send me a message on Instagram. You can go to findmeoninstagram.com and it will forward you to the account, or it's just Connor_Marriott, but find me on Instagram.coms.
Excellent. All right, Connor. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.